creepy psychological experiments that were real. Let's get started. 6. A class that hates each other. Imagine a classroom in Iowa in 1968. Third graders sitting in their seats, utterly unaware that they are about to take part in one of the most disturbing psychological tests ever done on kids. Jane Elliott. Their teacher comes in and makes a simple news. Children with blue eyes are better. They are smarter, cleaner, and more polite. Kids with brown eyes were not as good. Less smart and slower. The kids with blue eyes get more time outside. Lunch with seconds. Seats on the front row. The kids with brown eyes have to wear colored collars around their necks. They utilize different water fountains just like branding cattle. People will condemn you for every little thing you do wrong. These sweet babies change into something very different in just a few hours. The kids with blue eyes turn into little tyrants. They make fun of their classmates with brown eyes, say bad things about them. A meek boy with blue eyes suddenly turns into a bully. The kids with dark eyes fell apart. Kids who are sure of themselves can't do simple math anymore. They sit down in their chairs. Some people cry. When you tell them they're not good enough, their test results go down. The second day comes. Elliott turns everything around. Now suggesting that kids with brown eyes are better than youngsters with blue eyes. The collars change necks. Now that the brown-eyed youngsters remember how bad they felt, they sometimes do the same things to other kids. The blue-eyed girl who was in charge yesterday is now quiet and obedient. These kids learn to discriminate against people based on their eye color. Friendships didn't mean anything. Being mean became simple. All because someone in charge felt one group was better. The really scary aspect is that this works on grown-ups too. Elliott did this experiment again in business settings. Adults quickly started acting in the same unfair ways on TV shows. They turned on each other just as quickly as the kids did. It shows how easy it is for anyone to make people think of themselves as us and them. How readily we'll injure people when we think we're better than them. How quickly we'll think we're useless when someone tells us we're not good enough. It only takes someone in control to draw a line. 5. The study on rat decapitation. In the 1920s, psychologist Carney Landis pondered whether all individuals exhibit identical facial expressions in response to similar emotions, such as a universal expression of sadness or astonishment. Landis put together a group of people, most of whom were students. He drew dark cork lines all over their faces so he could better see how their facial muscles moved. Picture yourself sitting there, your face looking like a strange road map waiting for the emotional roller coaster to start. Then he put them through a sequence of events. Some were relatively normal, but not very nice. It smells like ammonia, which hurts your nose like crazy. Listening to jazz music and looking at things that were thought to be disturbing at the time. They urged the participants to stick their hand in a pail full of nasty frogs. You can picture the looks folks made for that one without looking. They were shown a real white rat. They were told to watch as Landis used a knife to cut off its head. Landis gave the knife to a participant who flinched or looked upset. He urged them to cut off the rat's head themselves. You are a student with lines all over your face. And now a psychotherapist is pushing you to kill an animal with your own hands. The most alarming element is that around 2/3 of the people who took part really did it, even though many of them were plainly appalled and had never done anything like it before. Landis would often do it himself in front of people who said no. After taking pictures of all those stressed-out, frog-slimed, rat-traumatized faces, he came to the conclusion that there are no universal facial expressions. Even when the identical thing happened, people had a wide range of reactions. The experiment didn't really prove his first idea. Landis largely showed that individuals will do some really astonishing things when an authority figure in a lab coat asks them to. He also made one of psychology's most morally problematic studies in the process. It's impossible to forget the pictures of those cork-lined faces that were twisted in pain. Number 4. Kids hit the Bobo doll. In 1961, psychologist Bandura wanted to determine if kids replicate aggressive actions. So he set up an experiment that would make modern ethics boards pass out. He brought in 72 preschoolers and put them into groups. Some kids saw an adult completely destroy a clown toy that was inflatable. The adult beat it with a hammer, kicked it, punched it, and yelled things like, "Sock him in the nose." Other kids watched an adult play with toys and entirely ignored the clown. And a third group didn't see any adults at all. The researchers gave each child 2 minutes to play with some really cool toys. Then they told the child that those toys are for other kids. Then they put the child in a room with the same inflatable clown doll and some regular toys. The kids who saw the aggressive adult went totally crazy on the clown. They didn't merely duplicate what they saw. They came up with new strategies to tackle it. Some of them picked up toy firearms that the adult never even touched. They said the same things they heard word for word. Kids who witnessed the calm adult mainly disregarded the clown, though. The experiment showed that kids are like walking tape recorders. They observe violence, conduct violence, and think it's normal. Bandura basically trained naive kids to be mean for science. An adult showed these kids that it was permissible to hurt a doll, and they went from playing nicely to doing it. The experiment impacted the way we will always think about violence on TV and in video games. Imagine being 4 years old and having scientists make you violent. 3. The conflict between the boys in the robber's cave. Picture sending your child to summer camp for some healthy outdoor fun. Now picture learning that they were secretly part of a psychological experiment that made them miniature soldiers. This exact thing happened in 1954 at Robbers Cave State Park in Oklahoma. Muzaffar Sharif, a psychologist, wanted to observe how quickly normal kids may turn on each other. So he got together 22 boys who were all 11 years old and from comparable circumstances. They didn't know each other, and they didn't know they were guinea pigs. At first, the lads were split into 2 groups and kept apart from each other. The Rattlers were one faction, and the Eagles were the other. For a week, each group did standard camp things like swimming, hiking, and making friends. They didn't even know there was another group. The researchers got the groups to know each other by having them compete. Baseball tug of war and capture the flag. The winners won prizes and pocket knives. Nothing went to the losers. These average kids become cruel in just a few days. It all began with name-calling. The Eagles said the Rattlers were bad. The Rattlers said that the baseball field was theirs. Then things got worse. At night, they broke into each other's cabins. They set fire to each other's flags. They kept green apples as weapons. There were real fistfights. The researchers weren't just monitoring. They were secretly making things worse. After making these kids enemies, the sheriff tried to remedy what he had done wrong. First, he made them eat together. That caused arguments over food. The researchers set up fictitious emergencies that needed people to work together. The water supply stopped working for some reason. To uncover the problem, both parties had to work together. The truck that sells meals broke down. Everyone had to use a rope to pull it. The walls started to come down slowly as people expressed their problems. In the end, the boys decided to ride home on the same bus. They even put their prize money together to buy milkshakes. These kids didn't agree to be foes with each other. The kids' parents assumed they were sending them to a normal summer camp. Instead, their kids became unsuspecting subjects in a research on how to make people hate. The experiment demonstrated the ease with which ordinary individuals can be coerced into tribal conflict. All it needs is a little push from authority and some competitiveness. Number 2. Making orphan kids quiet. Think about scientists trying to make a youngster unable to talk on purpose just to see if they could. This exact thing happened at the University of Iowa in 1939. Wendell Johnson, a speech pathologist, and his graduate student Mary Tudor ran the experiment. They used 22 orphaned kids as test subjects. Some of them already had stutters. Most of them spoke just fine. The researchers put the students into groups. A group of kids who stuttered had good speech treatment. They were given praise and support. But another group got something else entirely. These youngsters talked like normal, but Tudor warned them they were getting a stutter. "Don't do that," she'd say every time they stopped or said a word again, which is something all youngsters do. "You are beginning to stutter." She would advise them to exert their willpower and not say anything until they could do it perfectly. These kids were orphans, and now an authoritative figure was telling them that something was very wrong with how they talked. The kids who were treated badly didn't suddenly start stuttering, but a lot of them got quite self-conscious about talking. They become quiet and worried. Some people didn't want to talk at all. Their grades went down. They seemed like they were having mental problems. The bitter irony is that Johnson had a stammer himself. He thought that stuttering was a learned behavior, and that overly critical adults may cause it. So he sought to make orphaned children stutter. The study was never published in a formal way. Mary Tudor went back to the orphanage 3 times to try to fix the damage. But for other kids, it was too late. In 2001, Iowa gave money to the surviving orphans from the negative therapy group to recognize the scars they would carry for the rest of their lives. The experiment was called the monster study, which is a good term for research that used weak kids like lab rats. Making little Albert scared. In 1920, psychologists John Watson and Rosalie Rayner wanted to test if they could make a baby scared of something. Their subject was a baby they called Little Albert, who was 9 months old. They started by showing Albert a white rat. The baby tried to touch it. He wasn't scared at all. They also showed him a Santa mask, a bunny, a dog, and some cotton wool. Albert played with all of them. Every time Albert tried to grab the white rat, Watson would wait behind him and pound a steel bar with a hammer. Picture that deafening clang just behind a baby's head that came out of nowhere. Of course, Albert would start to cry. They kept doing this. Rat. A lot of noise. Little Albert would cry and try to crawl away as soon as he saw the white rat. He had learned to be afraid of the rat even without the terrible sound. Albert was also scared of other furry things. He was likewise terrified of the bunny. He was scared of the dog. He was scared by a fur coat. That Santa Claus mask now made him feel bad too. The experiment ended suddenly because Albert and his mother left. Watson and Rayner never got to fix the terror they had caused. For many years, no one knew who he really was. Some scholars later figured out that he was Douglas Merritt, who unhappily died at 6 years old from a different ailment. A different theory said he was William Barger. Barger's family said that he had always hated animals, especially dogs. People now think this experiment is very wrong. You can't hurt a newborn on purpose for science anymore. But the story of Little Albert is nevertheless a scary reminder of how far some researchers were willing to go. That's all for now. I'll be making videos like this in the future. To see them, subscribe.